Greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, Robert Meyer Burnett. I invite you to watch and listen to the Designing Hollywood podcast, brought to you by Martika Ibarra and the great, legendary Hollywood costume designer, Marilyn Vance. I am afforded the wonderful opportunity of co-hosting the show. If you are interested in the magic of Hollywood, the design of Hollywood, the clothes of Hollywood, watch the Designing Hollywood podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts from, or find the video version on the John Campea YouTube channel. That's right, the Designing Hollywood podcast. Why would you ever want to miss it? Especially if you love the movies.
Robservations with Robert Meyer Burnett.
I've heard it said before, like, it was a very smart man named Robert Meyer Burnett who said the currency of our current age is authenticity. And it's so true.
Imagination Connoisseurs Unlimited, in association with Road to Perdition author Max Allan Collins, presents the audio drama True Noir, the Nathan Heller Casebooks, starring Todd Stashwick as Nathan Heller, adapted from the 19-novel series by Max Allan Collins. Todd Stashwick plays Nathan Heller, once an on-the-take police officer in 1930s Chicago, turned private eye to the stars. Look for the crowdfunding campaign coming soon to the interwebs near you. Greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, your sommelier of sci-fi and cinema, your evangelist of the imagination and the maybe never to be defined existential Mr. Rogers. That's right, me, Robert Meyer Burnett, and I'm, of course, Robcasting at you, right here from the Robservatory. You, imagination connoisseurs, you members of this, the Post-Geek Singularity community. This is Robservations episode... It's Robservations episode number 900. And what is it? 945, I think? It's pretty good. Yes, it is. 945. Wow. See, sometimes I remember, but my mind is going, I'm kind of like Hal in 2001 when, Dave Bowman's just pushing those lucite things down and I can feel it. Daisy. Maybe I'll start singing that and people are going to be like, wait, what? What's happening? I'll tell you what is happening or what's not happening. Hollywood. Hollywood ain't happening. I mean, it kind of is and then it's not. I mean, we've got Dune 2 racing up the box office charts, doing good business during the week, which is always a great thing. Kung Fu Panda 4 opening shortly. March goes into April. We've Steve Asbell over at 20th Century Studios is bringing you The First Omen in April. We got movies coming, and then of course in May we got Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I can't wait for that. And Fury fucking Osa, man. Yes, can't wait to see that. So there's good stuff coming. Problem is, everyone's demoralized. Hollywood's demoralized. And I've got an article from the Wrap that I wanted to cover, but before that, again, just zipping around the internet looking for things to talk about on this show, and I came across a website called The Black and the Blue, and it is a website for Hollywood camera assistants. Literally, first AC, first camera assistant camera, which I thought was interesting and very specific. That's where I stole the picture from the thumbnail for this website. I'd never been to this website before. I didn't know that this existed. But there was an interesting article that I wanted to share with you that kind of fit the theme of what it was I wanted to talk about. So here's the article. Now, I don't know when this was written, but it was written by Evan Lucy. By the way, you can follow along if you want. The links for the articles are below the tip link right in the description. But I read this and I thought, wow, you know what? I love this article, so I figured I would share it. 7 unrealistic expectations of film industry jobs. Rarely do experiences turn out how we think they will. Or, if they do, there's still a small element of surprise. Starting your career in the film industry is like that too. Your expectations for life as a filmmaker are sure to be challenged, and some of them will turn out to be unrealistic, like these 7 listed below. There's nothing quite like the naivete of doing something for the first time. You're nervous, anxious, excited. You bubble with anticipation for what surprises lie ahead. Then there's the actual experience of the first time, and it's usually not what you expect it to be. You probably can't even explain what you expect it to be like, but you know that it felt different. Rarely do experiences turn out how we think they will, or if they do, there's still some element of surprise. Starting your career in the film industry is like that too. Your expectations for life as a filmmaker are sure to be challenged, and some of them will turn out to be unrealistic, like these 7 listed below. Number 1, you're going to be super rich and super famous. Your friends and family love to call you the next Steven Spielberg, or talk about how when you're rich you can buy them all a house or a new car, or don't forget me in the credits. It's all innocent fun, and there's nothing wrong with support for your dreams. But the chances of this happening aren't quite as high as your family would like. In fact, they're infinitesimally small. Thousands of people filter through the industry each year in a variety of disciplines, and yet there's only a very small percentage at the top who are well known. Even then, their fame and riches are fleeting. Just because you're unlikely to be the next Quentin Tarantino does not mean you can't be successful. In fact, you can live quite comfortably working in the film industry if you take the right approach, because your skills are highly specialized and only a handful of people have them. Besides, fame and riches are all relative to the context in which they exist. To you and I, people like Roger Deakins and Philip Bloom enjoy a certain level of fame, but only because we interact within that realm, meaning camera assistants. The general public isn't really aware of who they are. Fame and money are 2 symbols of Hollywood success, but don't expect them to be yours automatically because you stepped on a set. Number 2, you get to hobnob with A-list celebrities. I get the impression that those outside of the industry think that showing up on set is like arriving at a party, where you walk around, say what's up to everyone, and then sit down next to a famous celebrity talking to their agent and find out what they're going to wear on Letterman that night. So maybe that is a bit of an extreme example, but regardless, there are people who think getting a job on a movie equates to hanging out with Tom Cruise. I've been on sets with well-known people and faces, but the majority of work that comes my way doesn't feature any type of celebrity at all. And when it does, it's hit or miss on whether they hang out with the crew. If you work long enough in the industry, you will definitely have opportunities to meet and converse with celebrities, but it's not going to be every show you work on, and they won't always want to hobnob. Number 3, every movie you work on will be successful. It's a 99% guarantee that every movie you work on will be sold to you in some way as having a real chance. And in a way that's true, but in another way the statistics are overwhelmingly against it. In this article, the Sundance odds get even longer. Adam Leipzig set forth this startling series of numbers. As an example, let's take the 2,613 feature films, up 29% from 2023 last year, that were submitted to what has become the primary portal for new filmmakers seeking an audience, the Sundance Film Festival. Those completed movies make up the collective hopes and creative output of tens of thousands of talented people. But only 120 of those films, fewer than 5% of all submissions, were selected for screening at the festival. If it's a good year, just maybe 10 of those movies, or 0.3% of the submissions, will be picked up for distribution within the United States. Wow, those are sobering statistics. What will happen to the remaining 2,603 movie submissions? For the most part, nothing. The figures are astounding and disheartening, especially when you consider they're from 2005. And all of those projections have risen. But it's the reality of a film industry that is ballooning budgets for big 3D IMAX event films while tightening their belt on smaller budget dramas. Even if you work on a film with a great script, there's so much that can go wrong to tank the project. However, with self-distribution models emerging every day and internet outlets like Netflix and Amazon embracing the indie market, your movies can still enjoy some level of success. Not just the red carpet premiere success you might be hoping for. Number 4, You'll get to take vacations whenever. Part of the draw to working freelance is the flexibility of it all. There's no overhead for your employment because you determine when, where, and what you will work on. At least that's the idea. But what tends to happen is the flexibility of freelance becomes a burden. Jobs will rise as quick as the air bubbles in water and just as soon pop when they get close to surfacing. In the film industry, no job is secure for the freelancer until they step on set for day one. You'll quickly find yourself planning mini vacations and trips around the holes in your schedule instead of scheduling gigs around the trips you wish to take. So while you could theoretically take a vacation whenever, it's more likely that the work you get will dictate your schedule instead of the other way around. Number 5, everyone has a fair shot at the jobs. I didn't want to include this on the list because I hate having to talk about it, but it's an unfortunate byproduct of the human element in the film business. If you're like me, you want everyone to get along, to be equal, and to offer up help to whoever wants it. You think everyone should have a fair shot at the job. You may think that age, race, gender, and the size of your shoes has nothing to do with your ability to get a job, but the politics of hiring are more than alive on certain projects. Let me repeat that, on certain projects. I've experienced a bit of on-set politics, and it's not fun at all. It's disheartening, tiring, and just plain stupid. But it doesn't stop there. It makes me sad to say that women will have a much harder time finding consistent work in the industry than men. For whatever reason, there are certain sets in this male-dominated industry that treat women like they're all Pippi Longstockings. Just read the post about a young woman who works as an electrician to get an idea of the level of ignorance. With all that said, if you work for the right people, you will never have to deal with this. But be warned, there will be times when what should be fair isn't. As I always say, it ain't show friends, it's show business. Number 6, you'll enjoy every shoot you're on. Filmmaking is a wonderful art. I love it. I have a passion for it. And movies are second to none in any form of entertainment. It would follow then that no matter where you are, what you're doing, and how you're doing that making them would be like riding a unicorn on roller skates through a rainbow. Right? Wrong. Not every shoot is created equal. You try and be as smart as possible and take jobs you think will be enjoyable and sound interesting. But that will only take you so far. The simple fact of the matter is that sometimes you aren't making a movie and instead you're working a job. The bad apples crop up every once in a while and you don't ever see them coming. If you truly love filmmaking, this will be just another bump in the rocky road of life, and no big deal. Just don't expect to walk off every set clicking your heels when there will be times when you're thinking, good riddance. Number 7, your job is creative, fun, and therefore easy. I saved the best for last. Filmmaking is easy because all you have to do is make movies. It's fun. It's creative. You just think of things, point the camera, and start rolling. If only that were true. That part of the equation that is missing is the ridiculous amount of logistics that go into filmmaking. Even on a small set, the amount of planning, setting up, and foresight required is immense. Your job is creative and fun, but it's most certainly not easy. Working in the film industry and climbing a ladder is hard, and it's tough. You'll have to stay awake for 12 hours or more on a consistent basis, be able to lug heavy equipment around, and survive the barrage of unpredictable problems that always arise. Of course, there will definitely be days that are easy to offset those days where you're about to give up. But don't ever fall into the trap that just because you're working on a movie means you won't have to put in effort and work your ass off. That's a one-way ticket to an entirely new career. Unrealistic does not mean impossible. The caveat to all of this, ranting and cynicism, is that none of what is listed above is absolute gospel. Just because it is unrealistic that you'll become rich and famous does not mean you can't ever become rich and famous. Your motivations, whatever they are, exist without the shackles of expectations or reality, and your dreams are even more limitless than that. But your ability to pragmatically temper those dreams with what is probable will help you make a successful career in film, and hopefully in that process, you prove me wrong on every single one of the unrealistic expectations listed above. Are you up to the challenge? And this was written by Evan Lucy, who is the creator of the Black and Blue. He's a freelance camera assistant and camera operator. He's available for work. I included the link to this article in the description below, so check it out. I got to say, I think Evan's spot on here. You know, I mean, my career, such as it is, has been sort of relegated to the low-budget realm. While I was a producer on Agent Cody Banks, and I'm not going to lie, those are pretty good paydays. It was one of the most difficult and, frankly, soul-crushing and annoying experiences of my life. Not necessarily because of the movie, but for some other things I could write a book about later. One day I will, called The Unmaking of Cody Banks. But that's a story for another day. But it got made. And then the sequel got made. And the sequel is, I'll admit, god-awful. And I'm sorry it got made. And I apologize to everybody who's watched Agent Cody Banks, Destination London. It shouldn't have happened that way. And unfortunately, because of certain things, we weren't able to protect our own project. But we got it made. And some people, most people who work in the industry would say that's a feat. Not only that, it was an amazing feat to sell a script to a studio and have it in production 3 months later. I mean, literally before the cameras. This kind of thing does not happen. And then within the same year, having the sequel get made as well. It was an insane time. But here's the thing. The act of making films and television has no bearing at all to what it's like to watch films and television. As a matter of fact, there's the difference between making a movie and watching a movie is take two things in your own mind that are incredibly far apart that have really nothing to do with each other. That's kind of the same thing between watching movies and making movies. And yet, all of us who love movies, that have been watching movies their whole lives, we all think we can make them. Hey, man, could you make a movie? Sure, I could. I know how to make a movie. I know what good movies are. You know, and it's just a funny thing. It's the one business that everybody thinks they can do it. I mean, I know I can't be a brain surgeon. I mean, I've never been a doctor. I've never gone to medical school. But in Hollywood, everybody thinks they can make a movie. Everybody. And it's an odd thing to see because I've seen it for 35 years. I've watched it. And there's this, it's a strange thing because how movies are actually made really hasn't changed much in 100 years. It's actually to work on a film project with a good crew is a really marvelous thing because you see people from all different walks of life because a film set is like a microcosm of society. You have white-collar workers, blue-collar workers, you have buttoned-up men in suits, and then you have, you know, the somebody can fix your problems with baling wire and duct tape. I mean, it's and they're all on set working together. And there's really nothing better than to watch a film crew work. It's a good film crew is an amazing thing. And you're seeing people working at the highest level of their profession because the profession itself weeds out those folks that can't cut it. And that's why it really is like no one has time for anybody that's not good at their jobs. You always hear stories about somebody's grandfathered in or somebody's uncle got them a job, which is fine, but those people don't last. You know, there's too much money at stake. Like I told many times on the show, I've said before, the film business, especially when you're in production, you can actually calculate how much every second costs on a film set. So you know on a film set you're going to be shooting for a 12-hour day, right? And let's say you have, you know, $100,000 for 12 hours. Just back into the numbers. You know, how many hours is 12 hours? Or how many minutes is 12 hours? How many seconds in a minute? You can literally calculate it down. And when you're on a film set, when you realize every second that clicks by on a film set could be, I haven't done the actual math right now, but maybe it's $25, maybe it's $50, maybe it's $100 per second. So if you don't have people who really know their jobs, you're burning through money. And the only value that you get is what you get in the can. And whether it's you're digitally capturing, whether you're actually still shooting film, whatever it is that you're doing, all of that money, all of that work, all of it is in service of making what's called making your day. And how you make your day is, as I've told you before, your schedule might be that today we're going to shoot 4/8 of a page. That's what you have to do. Everything that you're doing is to make sure that those 4/8 of a page are shot by the end of the day. That is the task at hand. Everybody knows that when they arrive on set at 6:30 in the morning to get breakfast in the breakfast truck. And, hopefully we'll be getting a shot off by 8, maybe 8:30. And if we're lucky, 7:45. But that hardly ever happens. But it could. But let's say it does. You have a limited time to make those 4/8 of a page, which means that everybody has to work at the top of their game. And every shot you get, like you might remember, we talked a couple days ago about how you would shoot a scene at a restaurant between two people sitting down. The amount of coverage you want to shoot, if maybe the 4/8 of a page is entirely the conversation that two people are having in a restaurant, well, that's a good day, because then you can really, as a director, put a lot of zhuzh on it. You can shoot it 4 ways till Sunday. You got a lot of time, especially if you have more than one camera. If it's a 2-camera shoot, hey. Of course, 2-camera shoots, lots more money. Double the camera rental and double the production people, because you need focus pullers and you need camera people on each camera. So you have to figure that out, and it's a great thing. And the profession is highly specialized. Unfortunately, the profession is also now scattered around the world. It's not like the production hub Hollywood used to be 10, 20, 30 years ago is not the way it is now. Atlanta, Louisiana was, Toronto, Vancouver, London. Saudi Arabia is actually trying to build. The Saudi Arabians have created I kid you not, blow up sound stages. And you're going to see a lot more of that money coming into American productions, and a lot more people are going and shooting. They'll be shooting in Dubai. They'll be shooting in Saudi Arabia. A lot of money there. They're doing a lot of innovations because they don't care. They have enough money. If you want to have a blow-up soundstage, you can have a blow-up soundstage in the middle of the desert. I can't say what it is, but I know that there's a movie that might get made in the middle of the desert that takes place at sea, which I just find that to be cracking. It just cracks me up every time I think about it. But that's the world we live in. However, now, coming out of the pandemic, coming out of the strikes, the film business is a mess. People are kind of a mess now. The people in the industry are wondering what's going on. We have an IATSE strike looming, possibly, which would shatter the industry. I can't even imagine. You hear about the WGA, you hear about the SAG, you hear about the DGA, but IATSE covers all of the other umbrellas. All the other people that work on a set are part of IATSE. And look, I am a fan of the protections that unions provide on a set. I think I've worked on too many low-budget sets. Look, when you're a low-budget filmmaker, you don't want to unionize, obviously, because it'll kill your budget. And when you unionize, if you're making a movie for $1 million or $2 million and you try and unionize, it's going to cost you a lot more money, and you don't get anything more for your cash. As a matter of fact, unionizing on a low-budget production is unfortunately undesirable, because you get your budget cut in half because you have to pay for the union, and you're not getting anything more for your money. However, if you do have the money and you're not working with $1 million or $2 million budget, and you have $5 million or you have $10 million, absolutely, there's nothing better than a finely honed, tuned union crew busting our ass and watching them work. It's great. But now we're facing another strike. Our movie White Devils that I'm finishing up. Thank God I have another movie coming out, and it might no promises, but it might be going theatrical. We shall see. If White Devils goes theatrical, I'm 2 for 2. Tango Shalom and White Devils in the space of 3 years. Not bad. We'll see. But now I'd like to read this article that was in the Wrap, because it depressed me. And now I'm going to depress you. So this was in the Wrap, and I think it's a good article. Again, link in the description below if you want to follow along. I believe the Wrap is free to subscribe to. Hollywood's slow post-strike comeback is creating a crisis of morale. This is by Diane Haithman, and this was published on March 5th, 2024. Again, in thewrap.com. We have a generation of people who have never seen anything like this in terms of not working. Lindsay Doherty of Teamsters Local 399 says, at last month's 11th annual Makeup Artists and Hairstylists Guild Awards at the Beverly Hilton Hotel, host Melissa Peterman won over the crowd by dancing her way onto the stage, mugging and teetering on spike heels and hitting them early on with a strike joke. I'm so glad to be back in this beautiful room with you beautiful people and not sweating on the sidewalk with a sign that says, "Will work for streaming bonuses." The actor-comedian's next line, however, didn't go over quite so well. I'm so glad that we're all back to work, Peterman bubbled. Hairstylist Christopher Fulton, one of the evening's nominees, told the Wrap afterward that a collective grumble went through the room. Peterman gamely attempted a save. Fingers crossed, she added brightly. 4 months after the SAG-AFTRA deal brought a definitive end to the Hollywood strikes, the return to work for many has been a disappointingly slow process. The situation is creating a crisis of morale in an industry already battered by reduced income and tensions with the major entertainment companies. But it could also usher in a wave of 90s-era innovation, industry professionals told the Wrap. From May 2023, when the Writers Guild went on strike, to October 2023, the number of workers employed in the entertainment industry in Greater Los Angeles dropped 17%, according to the November Otis College report on the creative economy. People had expectations that it was going to be like post-COVID. We'd all be slammed, said Toronto-based John Rakich, Location Managers Guild International President and a working below-the-line crew member. Most of the shows that were midstream when the strike happened came back with, okay, now you have to readjust your budgets. So it's a slow crawl. The slow recovery is posing more of a shock to Hollywood newcomers than to those who have weathered cyclical ups and downs in the industry for decades, experts say. Even veterans of previous strikes and economic downturns seem stunned by the slow start. The streaming boom has seen rapid advancement for many people working in the entertainment industry. And that's not how it used to be, Lindsay Doherty, principal officer of Teamsters Local 399, told the Wrap. We have a generation of industry workers that have never seen anything like this in terms of not working. Rakich said that new contracts are forcing guilds to have to reassess workforce needs. Besides the red tape and additional expense of meeting new guild minimums and other requirements, Rakich and others point to three main issues behind Hollywood's slow restart. Now here's the graph that shows Hollywood employment. First, the strikes ended just before the holidays, a traditionally slow period for the industry. Second, producers are facing possible strikes by the Animation Guild, IATSE, and the Teamsters Union, leading them to act cautiously with starting new productions and until negotiations with these unions are resolved. In some circles, there's a wait-and-see approach to see what's going to happen with IATSE. People are a little gun-shy, said Richard Botto, founder and CEO of Stage 32, a 1 million-plus member hub for creators all over the world. And third, expectations for that next job need to be adjusted greatly. When Hollywood resumed production after the initial COVID-19 lockdowns, California Governor Gavin Newsom's official production restart date was June 15, 2020. Workers entered or re-entered a streaming boom, experts say. Now, getting back to work means getting back to less work than was available in the pandemic rebound. Still climbing the mountain, but with a lower peak. It will be a slow ramp-up to get back to what production was before streaming was the craze, Rakich said. People keep saying, it's not like it used to be. And my answer to that is no. It is like it used to be in 2015, 2016, and 2017. The industry is very cyclical. Here's another graph that shows how employment goes up and goes down. The Otis College study concluded this Hollywood job contraction started before the strikes, but it could be exacerbated by new guild contracts that may make productions more expensive. The strikes were focused on the terms of work, with AI, how much human control there's going to be, and the usual series of negotiations around compensation per production, said Patrick Adler, principal at Westwood Economics and Planning Associates and one of the study authors. Two influences, the strike and settlement, and pre-existing trends are going to serve to suppress the amount of production afterwards. Added Adler, We can differentiate between two categories: the amount of work available and the terms of that work. Independent producer Scott Rosenfeld, who gave me my very, very first job in the entertainment business, hired me out of a class at USC. Independent producer Scott Rosenfeld, Home Alone, Mystic Pizza, November's Holiday Twist, now does much of his work overseas and is blunt in his observations about spiraling costs of doing business in Hollywood. I've done studio, I've done independent, but we kind of screwed ourselves because we pushed ourselves up higher and higher and higher on our budgets, and then it gets to the point where somebody finally goes, "Oh, that's a lot of money," Rosenfeld said. Here's Scott on the set of his new pilot, Main Street. I wonder if it's based on the Sinclair Lewis novel. Rosenfeld and others say a temporary lack of available jobs may trigger a burst of reinvention among independent producers. As an example, he and a co-producer decided to use downtime and shoot a short film to help sell a new project called Love Music Shelter. And a person he called an A-list director of photography, also waiting for the next gig, volunteered his services for free. "We did the short for $30,000, Rosenfeld said, and there's people doing things like that. That's kind of the world we should be in, and we're not quite there yet, but it's going in that direction." Los Angeles filmmaker Van White is among the many who are struggling to find work post-strikes, but he also sees the down period as an opportunity for a sea change in Hollywood toward lower-budget independent production. "The people who do the hiring are saying, 'I'm not obligated to hire you, so I'm going to hire myself,'" he told the Wrap. Otis College will soon launch another research project to gauge the longer-term effects of the strikes on the industry. White suggested a return to a storied industry past might be one of them. It'll be back to the 90s, when independent filmmakers like Kevin Smith and Richard Linklater, all those people who the studios didn't give a chance, took it upon themselves to make their own art piece, White said. "We're going to see a big boom in not only independent film voices, but voices around the world." Sundance 2024 demonstrated that indie filmmaking world faces significant challenges compared to the 90s, particularly as streamers are spending much less on such projects. But Adler argues that opportunities still abound. "In periods of downturn, people start to experiment," Adler said. "The hopeful thing about Hollywood is that there's so much talent, people who know how to tell stories with very high production values. How do you pair that with smaller scale, lower scale production? That's what's happening on the internet." Meanwhile, Stage 32's Botto said the phone is starting to ring, with producers seeking talent for projects down the road, summer, fall, and winter. "Our platform is up more than 50% for requests for screenplays by executives looking for scripts in our community. People are figuring that things are going to begin to open up, so let's start finding great material," Botto said. "It's a reset for everybody, the gig workers, the networks, and the streamers," Botto added. "For many people, it's in their blood, and they're not going to run away. Barring any more strikes, this too shall pass." Will it? I mean, as I've said, what I find interesting about where we are as a culture, with all the craziness going on around us, we now have in our power, and I've said this a lot, there's a lot of really creative TikTok video makers. We know the story of the brothers who ended up making Talk to Me, pretty banger horror film. They parlayed what they had learned making TikTok videos and things into making a feature film that came out theatrically and made a lot of money. The Critical Drinker, who I use a clip from when he was on the Russell Brand show, he has made a movie. He didn't direct it, but he's made a movie based on his series of novels that he publishes. He has an action hero character, and they've made a movie. And he told me something that I did not realize. He said that he was going to put his movie on his YouTube channel. I thought that he was making it to potentially sell, which I think he should do. But in his mind, he was just going to put it on his YouTube channel, which was amazing because his main channel, I think, is closing in on 2 million subscribers. And if you had 2 million subscribers and you charged, I don't know, $4.99 if you wanted to watch a Critical Drinker's movie, I think a lot of people would. That's a good number. Even if 10% of his, let's say 100,000 people, paid $5 to see that film. I don't know how much the movie cost, but that's pretty good. I mean, to four-wall a movie or to put it out with an independent distributor, you probably wouldn't even make that much money when all is said and done, even if it gets a decent theatrical release. So having a platform, he can now become a filmmaker, and if he wanted to, if it could be self-sustaining, he could make a whole series of films. You know, we've seen Chris Stuckman, who I admire greatly for doing this. He's made his horror film Shelby Oaks. He was very transparent with how his money was being spent. He crowdfunded it. I believe he's going to go the traditional route and put it in festivals and probably try and sell it. Hopefully it's good enough that it'll get picked up by a distributor and maybe get a theatrical release. Maybe an A24 will pick it up if it's good enough. I don't know. I know nothing about it other than it's called Shelby Oaks. So he used his platform on YouTube. I mean, if I had the number of subscribers they did, I would do more of that kind of thing. We'd crowdfund movies. As it stands now, we're doing the audio drama. And the audio drama is still in the low six figures because we have to pay talent, and it takes a long time to it's all post-production, but it's still not inexpensive. And there's a lot of characters, a lot of actors we have to pay. But again, we thought up something and we're doing it ourselves. And I think that, especially with this environment, we all still want to be, I mean, look, would I love to be in Denis Villeneuve's position? Sure. But if you go back and you look at his IMDb, he's been making films for 30 years. I mean, we might have just become aware of him in the last 15. But he's been making films for 30 years, even more than that. He's a lifer. And, you know, he's worked his way up in the industry, and he's given us Dune 2. And if he gives us Rendezvous with Rama, or he gives us Cleopatra, or he gives us Dune Messiah, or his unnamed film that he hasn't revealed the title to yet, good for him. You know, but that was a well-earned career over decades. And that's what you want. You know, there's very few people that are going to become the next new thing. I don't know if we're ever going to see a Tarantino. But if indeed we're going to go back to the 90s, I've always said, you know, for as much as craziness goes on in the film business, it's also as entrepreneurial as any other business. You know, if you figure out a way, the problem is it's really, 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 really hard to make a good movie. Very hard. And when you look at those numbers all the way back, you know, 2,600 films being submitted to Sundance back in the aughts in 2005, you think about the odds of that. And everybody who sends one of those movies to Sundance thinks, what if my film gets in? You never know. But still, that's a lot of movies. And it's just really hard, even when movies get done, of those movies, how many are good? There are 5 movies that I've edited that have never seen the light of day for various reasons. My work is exemplary, though. I just want to say, but still, for whatever reason, I worked on a film, I'll tell you, that I really liked. After I finished Free Enterprise, Orion Walker, the son of Jeff Walker, and his lovely mother, who was a great photographer for the likes of Bob Marley. She has Kim Walker has a book out. Kim Walker Gottlieb has a book out of all of her on-set photography from John Carpenter's movies. She was the still photographer on Halloween, Escape from New York, The Fog, and she published a book of her photographs. And Jeff Walker has been a well-known publicist, helped start and make Comic-Con what it is now. And their son Orion, who's gotten some great notoriety in the video game world as a award-winning writer now. So he directed a film that he co-wrote actually, called Dean Quixote. And in that film, he brought in his favorite band, a band called Guided by Voices. And Guided by Voices did 3 songs that are in the movie. I worked in this movie for a year. Worked my ass off on this movie for him. We had a good time. We, I think, got the movie down to being very respectable. And then the band that agreed to be in this movie had a management change or whatever, and the management then threatened and said, you can't put this movie out. So all this work, I mean, everybody was paid. The band certainly knew they were in the movie, but their new management prevented us from ever releasing the film. So that movie that I spent a year of my life on has been sitting unseen in a closet somewhere, in the garage, probably the Walker's garage, for 20 years. And it was very much a riff on, if you look it up, I think you can find the trailer, Dean Quixote. And it was a, low-budget, micro-budget film, but I was really proud of the work that we did on it. Again, has gone completely unseen. And that was really depressing. I made a movie with my friends, the Enton twins. They wrote and directed a movie called My 11th that stars Maren Hinkle, who played the mom on The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. And that film has been pretty much shelved, which is too bad. But again, spent a year, proud of the work done. No one's ever seen it. So you never know. There's been many things that I've worked on that haven't seen the light of day, which has been, as you can imagine, frustrating. But you know what? The one thing that the modern age has given us, especially talking to you right now, is it's given people an outlet and tools to reach an audience they couldn't normally reach. And if the critical drinker does indeed take his film, I mean, I said this before, I got hammered by it. I talked about how the Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro's The Daily Wire, started to pick up. Obviously, they're making a Snow White movie with Brett Cooper, and people got mad at me that I was even talking about them. How can you talk about that? And I was like, look, I'm looking at them as a new film distributor, the same way that Angel Studios acquired the Sound of Freedom from 20th Century Fox. The movie had languished away. It was made by Fox, and Angel Studios got it, put it out, and had great success. It's not about the politics, and it's not about who's necessarily involved, but here's another company. What is it? Run, Hide, Fight was the first movie that they acquired for distribution, and they allowed their subscribers first crack at it. Their 5 million subscribers. This is a new production model. Why was I interested in it? Not necessarily because of the daily politics, although truth be told, I certainly watch people from the Daily Wire on YouTube as part of my very wide-ranging media diet. But I think that don't necessarily agree with them, but I still watch to see what's out there, to see where different points of view are coming from. But I do respect the fact that that company started their own distribution end, and now they're making their own movies. And I'm not saying that you have to like their movies. I'm just saying that they are now a distribution entity that didn't exist 5 years ago. So there's a lot of places you can take your films. I don't know if I'd ever make a movie they'd want to distribute, but I'm just saying it does exist out there. So there's a lot going on. And again, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. Who's with me? Was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor? Hell no. Forget it. He's rolling. That's an Animal House reference, if anyone remembers that. But look, my whole thing about this is I've always been sort of a self-starter and found my own projects. And while I haven't become as rich and famous as maybe I would want to be, I mean, I have far more engagement on this YouTube channel and with the other YouTube channels that I'm on. I mean, I'm surprised. This channel has over, I think, 10 million, 11 million views, 12 million views. I'm not sure. I haven't looked lately, but that's astonishing to me. That even though I've been on this channel for over 5 years now, that's a lot of people to I mean, you know, when you make something, you want people to watch it. And there's nothing, I promise you, nothing more depressing than making a movie that nobody watches. And it's sad. It's a bummer. What can you do? But I would say that with everything that's coming down the pike, with AI or you name it, like everything else, you can make your own destiny. And I know working in the business, is it hard to get money? Yes. But as anyone will tell you, the problem with the business, the problem with Hollywood, is that you're always waiting on somebody else to tell you you can or can't do something. My friend Kevin Rubio and I are waiting. We had a great pitch for an animated series that Kevin wrote the script to, and I'm the producer of. And it's a very interesting, unique animated show. And we're waiting. We had a great pitch. You know, we're waiting. We think it's a perfect match for a company, but our destiny is in their hands. If they decide it fits with what they want to do, suddenly we might be in business, and it'll be the second animated series I've worked on. First as a creator producer. Hopefully it will go, but you never know. And if it doesn't go, which is usually the case, you don't get to make what you want to make, but you got to, look, the old adage, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. So you just keep going. And I think that it is demoralizing to be in a state of flux and to not know what's going on. But I still look at everything as an opportunity. And so is Hollywood in a demoralized state? Certainly. But like this article points out in the wrap, by the way, the link, if you want to read it again, is in the description. The thing is, it's all up to everybody. And I wouldn't mind seeing the 90s indie cinema boomtown come back, because I worked on those. Free Enterprise was born out of that. And I worked on a lot of movies before that as an editor with other people, helping bring their movies to fruition. And it was a fun time. I love that. I love that era. I love jumping from film to film to film. And I've learned so much since then. And if that's where the 90s are going to go, or if the 90s are coming back, good for us. So that is pretty exciting. So I don't know what you guys think, but put comments down below. Tell me what you do think. And that's kind of what I wanted to say. Now I have a lot of letters that I've been getting. I gotta give it up to you guys. The letters I've been getting are pretty great. Let me first let's take a look at your super chats and see what's going on here with that. We have a new member, PGS Hero, Star Trekkin'. Love to see a new member named Star Trekkin'. Robert Cullen, PGS Hero, new member. Hey, Robert, welcome. By the way, for you new members, we are going to have a member chat this Saturday. Every other week, we have on Saturdays starting at 11 a.m. I'm usually late sometimes or whatever, but theoretically 11 a.m. they usually last 3 or 4 hours. We just hang out and chat. And so join us. Come join us. And there you go. So you new members, think about that. Brian Osborne said, sad news, Rob. Denis Villeneuve says he doesn't believe in releasing deleted scenes. There goes our hope for an extended edition of Dune. Oh, but he said that from the beginning. I never thought there was ever going to be an extended edition of Dune. It's a bummer, but I just said, not everybody's like Peter Jackson. So I think it's okay. We know that. He wants the movies to be what they are. And he said he already went through the process of killing his darlings, as they say, and he's not going to bring them back. And I understand that. Jay Bling says, Dakota Johnson officially just said good riddance. Good riddance to what? The whole industry? She actually has a really interesting movie coming out. Is it her and Sean Penn? Sean Penn, I think, is a cab driver. It kind of looks like the movie Locke. I don't know if you guys ever saw Locke, but Locke I really liked it. The whole movie's set in a car. Tom Hardy. He's literally in a car driving the entire movie. It's really, really good. And I suggest watching it. So Joey Johnson says, Rob, why are you inside streaming on your birthday? You people crack me up. That is very, very, very funny. You guys are hilarious. Hilarious. So thank you for that. That's very funny. Let's see. That joke's I gotta give it all up for all of you, because that joke, it could get old, but it never ceases to make me chuckle. And you guys have done a good job. You're keeping it going now for what, a week? Unbelievable. Graham says, love the channel, Rob. Never miss an episode. Did you get my letter in September? An ode to Star Trek. Would love to hear your book recommendations. Well, my Star Trek recommendations, Star Trek book recommendations. I always tell people, if you want to read great Star Trek books, the Reeve Stevens Prime Directive is one of my favorites. So is their book Federation. So yeah, I would definitely look into those. I'm going to start putting lists of things on the website. I keep saying I'm going to do that, but I'm going to do it. We'll see. So yeah, more book recommendations. I got to come up with that. But in terms of Blind Sight, Hyperion, and Fall of Hyperion, Kim Stanley Robinson's Mars trilogy, Red Mars, Green Mars, Blue Mars, or is it Blue Mars, Green Mars? I think Green Mars is the second one. I love those books. Peter Watts' Blind Sight, Donna Tartt's The Secret History. I would say the same stuff, but Glenn Duncan's The Last Werewolf. Those are some good things. Tom J says, hey, Rob, just curious when you're having twin flicks on the show. I think he'd be a great guest. Yeah, we've talked about that. We're definitely going to have him probably on Let's Get Physical Media. So, yeah. Marco Esquindolas sends in a $20 tip and says, I know Scott Rosenfeld. He's a great guy. God bless him. Rob, you are a voice for the ages. Keep on keeping on. Well, Marco, if you ever see him, Marco says, sorry about the typo. I can't see. Well, Marco, I'll tell you something. I've told this story before, but here's a great story about some. You just never know when stuff's going to happen. And I've told this story before, but Mark Levinson and Scott Rosenfeld, who executive produced Mystic Pizza, which was they produced Mystic Pizza, and then they were the executive producers of Home Alone. They made a really interesting science fiction movie called Stranded. They also produced Teen Wolf. So I was taking a class at USC. It was a Tuesday night class. It was like a 2-credit class with a professor named Max Lamb. And it was called the Visiting Artists Seminar. And Max Lamb would bring people that worked in the industry just to speak. That's how I met Joel Schumacher for the first time. He came into that class. George Clayton Johnson, who wrote original Twilight Zone episodes and Star Trek episodes and co-wrote the novel Logan's Run, came to the class. It was a great class. Well, one day, Mark Levinson and Scott Rosenfeld came to class. Now, what I would do before the classes, there was no internet back then, so I used to go to the Academy Library, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences Library, and they literally would keep, they had folders. You could look up anybody in the entertainment business, and they had gigantic file cabinets with folders, and you could find people, and they would keep clippings that were in the trades or whatever about certain people. And I would go do research on whoever was going to come in. And so when Mark Levinson and Scott Rosenfeld came in, I just was raising my hand and asking specific questions about various projects that they had worked on. And they were really nice. And the next day, Max Lamb found me on campus, and he said they wanted to talk to me. And it was just me asking questions. They gave me a job. They gave me a job working in their office, and that was the first time I ever started reading screenplays. And I was doing coverage, telling them, and that was the first time I ever read a script that I thought was good that I actually recommended. And I'll say it again, it was David Tui's script for the Grand Tour that was later made as the Grand Tour Disaster in Time. They didn't make it, but I thought it was good. I was like, this script should get made. And lo and behold, it did. And if you've never seen Grand Tour Disaster in Time, it's kind of a fun time travel story about disaster tourists from the future. So it's good stuff. So yeah, they're good guys. Nick Parrish has been a PGS member for 36 months. Thank you for that. Malcolm Adler says, have you ever seen a movie on VMAX Cinema? I want to see Dune 2 on a big screen, but no IMAX. I've heard VMAX is a gimmick. Any advice? I've never seen a VMAX screen. I don't like the scene extensions, or I don't like anything like that. It's distracting to me. I want to see the biggest film. Give me the biggest screen with the biggest sound system. That's what I want. Real Lavi says, now that Trek is being bought by Warner Brothers, let's hope, do you think they'll give you a call? Should we start a campaign if they do? I don't think that Warner Brothers is going to buy Star Trek. I mean, look, anything's possible, but the thing is, Paramount, Star Trek is a big part of the studio itself. And they're still they got the Section 31 movie being made, Strange New World Season 3 is being made, they're prepping Starfleet Academy, that's getting made. So I wouldn't imagine that they're going to sell Star Trek to Warner Brothers. See, the thing about that is then they still have to find people to go make it. And, would I like to work on Star Trek? Sure. I think I might be annoyed. But to be honest, I don't know how gratifying that would be to work on Star Trek, to work on something like that, unless I would never be given the level of control that I would want. And because there's going to be people that have just worked in TV longer than I have that I'm never going to, as a matter of fact, I'm not qualified to be honest, to run a writer's room or to even produce a TV show. I could work in post, I could be like a Peter Lorreson or something. But what I'd want to do is control what's getting made. Star Trek lives and dies by the writing. And that's what I think has been lacking. And I, unfortunately, am not, even though I've written one movie that got made and I've written 3 others, and I think this script that I'm working on right now, I'm really happy with it. I hope to one day make it. It's a dream project of mine. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I just don't think that they're going to sell Star Trek. I don't. Sonny Dominguez says, I'm excited for Dune 2. Dune 2 chicks at the... I'm excited for Dune 2, doing two chicks at the same time. I love that new meme. Did you send me that meme? I thought about you. Yeah. That's funny. Played out for 20. Says, oh, hi, Rob. I might think John Schnepp might be doing something like this if he was still here, engaging with the fans. I can't imagine how much people who knew him miss him. I miss him, and I only knew him from YouTube. I'll tell you what played out. I wouldn't be on YouTube if it wasn't for John Schnepp. You know, he called me up. I was on the 6th episode of AMC Heroes. That's the day I met in April of 2015. This April, I'll have to figure out which day. I think it was like, maybe it was April 11th, or maybe it was earlier, but I was on the 6th episode of Collider Heroes. Pardon me, it was AMC Heroes at the time. Hadn't become Collider yet. And John Schnepp called me up. And 9 years. April marks my 9th year on YouTube, which is crazy. Crazy. Hunter Becknell says, Rob, have you heard of the potential Warner Brothers Paramount merger? Rumors are that Kurtzman wants out of Star Trek and Warner Brothers wants to create not just one Star Trek timeline and go forward with movies. Have you heard this? Thoughts? Look, from what I understand, any merger with Warner Brothers is dead. They were having discussions with people like David Zaslav, but it's dead. All this other stuff, timelines. Whenever somebody talks about buying something like Star Trek and then talking about timelines, I know it's a bunch of BS because nobody who is buying any entertainment property knows enough about the entertainment property to sit there and talk about timelines. They're just not. They're not doing that. And let's just say I heard something today that leads me to believe that Secret Hideout is continuing to develop projects that are not announced yet, and it's not for Warner Brothers. But I do, by the way, Hunter, I do appreciate you taking the time and supporting the channel like this. So I just think, because the thing is, you know, Lucasfilm, remember, they didn't just buy Star Wars, they bought Lucasfilm. And the thing about Paramount is, I mean, yeah, Sherry Redstone could theoretically start parting out Paramount and sell off their franchises. But one of the things that makes Paramount Paramount and makes it lucrative is that they have Star Trek. I mean, say what you want, Star Trek's library alone, the Star Trek library is massive. It's a lot bigger than the Star Wars library was when Disney bought Star Wars. I mean, you're talking hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of Star Trek, and there's 13 feature films. Although, to be honest, boy, if what I heard is true, the new Star Trek script that was recently delivered is garbage. I heard what it was about. I'm like, what? Man, if you're going to deal with the Romulan War, here's something for you. Go use Eric Jedrinson's script. You own it. It needs another rewrite. He wrote half of Mission Impossible. He wrote Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning with Chris McQuarrie. Go get Jedrinson's script and get Chris McQuarrie and him to rewrite it, and go make that. There's your new Star Wars movie, or Star Trek movie, pardon me. Go make that script. You own it already. It's better than anything you've tried to make in the last. I mean, they can't get a good script. It's all new. It's what you want. Trust me on this one. Star Trek The Beginning, you're going to change that title. But go get Eric Jedrinson's script and get him and Chris McQuarrie to do it. Hell, get Chris McQuarrie to direct it. I mean, they'll rewrite it and make it a banger. Joe Panora says, just hopped on and had to ask, did you see that video about Warner Brothers wanting to just buy the Trek IP and Kurtzman wants out? Seems a bit out there if you ask me, but what do I know? Remember, how many times have we heard Kurtzman's out and this, that, and the other thing? Kurtzman's not out. They're in the middle of producing they're making the Section 31 movie, they're making Strange New Worlds, and they're doing Starfleet Academy. These are things that are in production, and there's something else being made by them that hasn't been announced yet. I don't know exactly what it is. I just know that somebody's working on it, whatever that might be. I don't know. But from what I understand, it's not. But you know what? What do I know? I'm not on the inside when it comes to Star Trek. I just hear things, and I drink, and I know things, but I don't know what's going on with Star Trek. I don't. It doesn't make much sense to me, though, that Paramount, they would want to sell it. Geo Diaz asks, the credits on Free Enterprise are amazing. How much fun was that to make? I think you were the first to do anything like that. So Gio Diaz is asking about the movie that I directed that is celebrating its 25th anniversary on June 4th of this year. Of course, it stars William Shatner, Eric McCormack, Rafer Weigel, Deborah Van Valkenburg, and a cast of thousands, and Blake Lively's sister, Lori. Believe it or not. I kid you not. That's a true story. It was, I mean, I can't even tell you. It's the most fun I had in my life. So what Gio is referring to is at the end, we put in a lot of fake credits like Airplane. Like the movie Airplane in 1980 had a bunch of fake credits. So it's not like they were fake credits, but they just were one-liners that didn't belong in the credits of a movie. And it's funny because if I ever do get to renovate the film, I've already added a joke to the movie. So an example, in the end credits of the movie, it's all science fiction references for you geeks, but one of the credits says, "Day the Moon left Earth's orbit," which is September 13th, 1999, if any of you are Space 1999 fans. Well, in the original version of Free Enterprise, it says the near present. And my idea was every movie I made was going to start with the subtitle, or it's going to start with the tag, the near present. Because where is the near present? What does that mean? Does it mean it's today? No, it's the near present, meaning is it an alternate universe? But Free Enterprise is now a 90s period piece. So I want to change I've done a director's cut. If I ever get to do it in 4K, I will make some tweaks. But instead of saying the near present, I'm going to have it say, so in the same font, the same card that begins Blade Runner, where it says Los Angeles, November 2019. It's that card, but it says September 13th, 1999. So everybody will know now that it's a period piece. It's set in 1999. People ask themselves, what is September 13th, 1999? But they find out in the end credits. So it's a new joke that has a payoff in the end credits, but it's a Blade Runner reference in addition. So there you go. But it was amazing. I mean, I can't even begin. It's funny because people don't remember it. You know, a lot of people haven't seen it. You can't get it. It's not on streaming. But yeah, I mean, we were inspired by the films of the 90s. I mean, the two movies that inspired me the most influential was Swingers, was Doug Liman's first film, Swingers, with Jon Favreau, and that was the thing that inspired us the most. And Kevin Smith movies, and then our own lives and in the 90s in LA. That's what we were trying to capture. So I very much appreciate that. So thank you. Joe Panora says, we all ask the same question. We must all want a Trek rant. Well, you know, I'm saving that. We've got Discovery season 5 coming out. I mean, you know, it's not like I want to be known for this, but I'm sharpening my fingers, my claws, so to speak, because that is what it is. I don't know. So maybe, Joe, maybe you'll get a Trek rant. Maybe. In the End sends in a super chat and says, I got the Lord of the Rings extended editions. What if I get them signed by you? You could. I'm happy to sign it, but you know, I played the Lord of the Rings. I want to be clear. On a lot of the stuff that I produced, the special features for, say, Superman Returns or Chronicles of Narnia or X-Men, Usual Suspects, there was only a few of us working on those things. The Lord of the Rings discs, those special features, we had an incredible team at Curdy Pellerin, led by Jeff Curdy and, of course, Michael Pellerin, who led us all. And it was that company. It was an incredible team of people. And what's really interesting is some of those people are still working in the business, like Jason Hillhouse. He's working on Marvel projects, and he's doing an incredible job. Jason and we did a trivia track for Spider-Man 1 that was on the first Spider-Man 1 DVD. But yeah, it was an incredible team of people, and it was so much fun to work on. I loved it so much, and everybody was so cool. Hunter Becknell says, I guess irony is pretty ironic sometimes. Don't you think? I do. Yes, I do. Well, listen, I have some, I don't know what to make of this letter, but I got letters. And I know there's more super chats and more coming in, but don't worry. I'll get back to those. I'm just going to read some letters. This one comes from Kevin. I'm not sure what to make of this letter. I wasn't going to read it, but I'm going to read it anyway. The subject is double penetration of the fore and aft shuttle bays, kind of like on a dreadnought. Dear Rob, I feel that you are a friend indeed. We are of a similar age and have similar values. That is why I am sure you will understand that although I am a Jew-hating Nazi, N-word killer, and a raper of women, I should be allowed to carry on with my disgusting antics. You see, I am a fictitious villain in a story, and it feels like guys like me are going to be canceled soon. What kind of stories will we have if guys like me are no longer allowed in entertainment? The death of creativity is upon us, and all I can do is jerk off in your face about it. What? I'm the bad guy? Gloop. Well, I have to appreciate what you did there. Now, while that was a very colorful use of wordage, and I appreciate what you were doing, but I think our letter writer Kevin has a really good point. That how long in our storytelling are we going to allow to have villains who are truly villainous before we have to say, sorry, you can't have villains that are truly these kinds of evil people. Even though you can find far worse in real life. I mean, whatever villain you can come up with in a movie or a TV show or even a novel, real life will provide you somebody who's far worse. And I think, though, that the question's a valid question in that how long before I think the pendulum is going to swing the other way. Because here's the thing. All of this activist BS that we're dealing with and everybody who's demanding things, it's all about them. They're not really interested in fighting for a cause. They're not really interested in making sure there's all kinds of equality in the world. It's all about making themselves feel better. I don't buy any of it. It's all performance activism. Now, that's not to say there are people that have worked tirelessly, like my grandmother, for instance, was on the board of the Children's Orthopedic Hospital in Seattle most of her life, and raising money and going to the hospital and meeting kids, and she passionately believed in trying to find a cure for cancer and raise money for the Children's Hospital up there for her whole life. She was truly committed, but she didn't need to hear from other people that she was committed or how great she was or good for you. She did it because it made her feel good to be helping, but she didn't expect any kind of accolades back. And nowadays, I think we have you can go find your group. You can just pick whatever a grievance you have and go find your group and join it and have people pat you on the back. So, getting rid of villains, I hope not. I hope that people can understand that we need, because they're not helping our civilization progress anywhere. All of this trying to make people feel better about themselves is I get it, but the world is a terrible place. The world is hard. The world is mean. The world is not fair. So this idea that you're trying to prevent people from anything that would bother them is utterly absurd to me. So I hope, Kevin, that the kind of villain that you are endures, because it's villains like you that help us understand what being good means. So let's not get rid of all of those people. At least, I hope not. So this one, this is March 6th. I did not get this letter in time, but it comes from our friend Calvin Bowes. Calvin says, about 4.5 years ago, you played a video that I sent you of a 4-year-old boy wearing a Starfleet uniform and dancing and singing on a bed, holding a phaser and tricorder. That boy is Braxton Bowes, who today is 9 years old. Happy belated birthday, Braxton. You're 9. More than half your life, you have come to this channel, and we have supported your love and interest in Star Trek. So happy birthday, Braxton. It's good to have known you more than half the time you've existed in the universe. That's amazing. In age in life, he became a Star Trek fan before you or I did. You were about 5. I was 10, but Braxton was watching since birth. He even got to meet Shatner in an age before you or I did, and dare say he's one of the biggest Star Trek fans in the world, and he loves it more each day. But I sometimes have trouble getting him to not wear his Starfleet uniform, But this little guy who is now 9, you must admit, is one of the biggest continuing parts in your show. He is. He is very much a lover of old films as well. Some of his favorites are Phantom of the Opera from 1927, King Kong from 1933, and North by Northwest from 1969. His favorite Star Trek movie is Wrath of Khan, but the motion picture is a close second. Because of being a fan of Shatner, he started watching Boston Legal, and now he wants to be a criminal defense lawyer, and his goal is to go to Harvard. School is important to him, and he works very hard at it. I think being an imagination connoisseur is one of the best things any child can be, because it unlocks all the possibilities that life can offer. This is a glorious day, his 9th birthday, Calvin Bowes. P.S. He's getting a lot of Star Trek toys today. Well, Calvin, he is the way he is because you, sir, are a fine father. And it's great to hear from you. I'm sorry I did not get this on his birthday. I didn't do a show on the 4th. So I hope he had a great birthday. Have him send me another video. I'll play it. Another picture with the Star Trek toys. So happy birthday, Braxton. Live long and prosper. Anyway, great to hear from you. And I hope to continue to hear from you. That's very cool. This comes from Noah. Noah. Well, it's been raining a lot again today, so it's probably appropriate that I have a letter from Noah. Noah says, verisimilituding. Verisimilituding. Hi, Rob, if I may call you that. You can. I am a junior computer science major who loves nerd culture. I am a relatively new listener, about 2 months now, and I thoroughly enjoy listening to your thoughts and insights about the film and television industry. I may disagree with some of your film opinions. For example, my favorite Star Trek film is Star Trek 2009. That's okay. That's okay. I understand. It's a gateway drug. But for the most part, I agree with your takes on the current state of Hollywood. I noticed lately that you like using the word verisimilitude. I can't help but use that word verisimilitude when I discuss Dune Part 2, which, quite frankly, is peak verisimilitude. Yes, it is. Now, when I watch movies and TV shows, whether that be Shogun or after rewatching X-Men Days of Future Past, I can't help but think of verisimilitude. Anyway, I just wanted to introduce myself and let you know that I, too, am now verisimilituding. Have a great rest of your day and a great show. Well, Noah, you and I park our shuttlecrafts in the same shuttle bay. Whether it's a forward shuttle bay or a rear shuttle bay. Sometimes you use both, I guess. Terrible. I'm terrible. But I want to thank you. I want to thank you for that. Verisimilituding. See, you took my favorite word and you plussed it. You added to it. So thank you for that. Verisimilituding. Yeah, I mean, look, like I've explained it before. I mean, obviously, I got that word from Richard Donner because there was the picture of the word on the set that he had in his office of the swoosh and verisimilitude. But to me, the very essence of making movies is you are trying to create verisimilitude. Just means the quality of being real, something that has verisimilitude, something I've always taken it to mean like something that's artificial in a way, but there can be verisimilitude in a novel, in a TV show, in a movie. But it's the quality of being real. So if you're an artist of any kind and you're trying to create something that creates a credible reality, that thing has verisimilitude. And the thing about movies is people don't think about it this way, but everything you see in a movie, every single shot, that shot was created. It's not like they just set up a camera and let people who are just randomly there start talking. A movie is a complete construct. And every single shot in a movie has to create. Now, you don't necessarily have to have verisimilitude to reality. You can have, like a Tim Burton movie can have its own verisimilitude. Like if you're doing, whether he's doing Edward Scissorhands or whatever, clearly Edward Scissorhands is a crazy character that's probably not going to exist in the real world. But the way Edward Scissorhands is presented within the frame, it all works of a piece. Then you can believe, it makes you believe in the verisimilitude of whatever it is that you're watching. Or verisimilitude could mean, yes, you're trying to recreate reality like, I don't know, Lawrence of Arabia. Dune 2 has peak verisimilitude in that when you're looking at it all, it's very convincing. You don't see matte lines, and you don't see things that, I mean, some people have said some of the crowds, like on Geedy Prime or when the Long Live the Fighters or whatever. But to me, Dune 2 does in fact have peak verisimilitude. It's as far as science fiction films go, I mean, the reality of it all is astonishing and not easy to do. And Denis Villeneuve has a quality. I'll tell you something. One of my favorite shots, effect shots in any movie ever, is the first establishing shot of the alien ship in Arrival. When you see like the clouds coming over this mountaintop, and you see the kind of polished rock that you'd find on a beach or whatever, that ship that's just hovering above that's one of my favorite effect shots ever, because peak verisimilitude in that shot, absolutely real. But the ship, because it does not look like a battle cruiser or something, you believe that shot. And I find that shot awe-inspiring, and Villeneuve is really, really good at that. And if you look at how they did the effects, how they approached the effects of Dune 2, they did a great job. I mean, they really did. They really did. Speaking of that, The Fan with No Name is back. The Fan with No Name is back. The Fan with No Name has become quite the prolific letter writer, and I've quite enjoyed the letters that The Fan with No Name has sent in, and I can already tell I'm going to like this one. If for no other reason, then it's from The Fan with No Name. So he sent it to me as an actual document. I just have to download the document, which I did, and I have to see where did I put the document. I don't know. Where did it go? Here it is. I open this up. So this comes to us from The Fan with No Name. Villeneuve strikes back, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love Denis' Space Jihad. Hello, and thank you for once again taking the time to read my thoughts on Dune. I hope you enjoyed them. You more or less saw where I was coming from in my personal disappointment in Part 1. In your response, you made the point that Denis' Dune is great, but might not be as great as it could be. The French-Canadian director has taken an epic sci-fi tale and composed an art house film. I agree with this sentiment, but there are a couple of glaring points in Part 1 I believe he did the opposite. The first is the Sardaukar army reveal. Denis has championed the idea of cinema being a visual medium. Imagine the siege on the Arrakeen city. The Atreides army manhandles the first wave of Harkonnen soldiers, but then the next wave, still dressed as Harkonnen, systematically dismantles House Atreides. Then, among the battle, it is revealed to both the audience and the Atreides house that they are in fact Sardaukar. You're smacked across the face with not only this being the result of an in-house betrayal, but the ramifications of a political chess move as well. This would have been both more dramatic and more cinematic than the preceding scene of exposition on Seleucus Secundus. I do admit the visuals on that planet are stunning. That's where the Sardaukars are being trained. You hear the voice. Another example of this is Dr. Yue giving Duke Atreides the poison tooth on sight. I felt this was kind of a slight to the character of the Duke and his strategic calculation. To me, both his character and death would have been much more, say it with me everyone, metal, if it was a failsafe for a moment he had anticipated years ago. Instead, we get the guy who betrayed him essentially saying, "My bad, but here's one bullet in the chamber." Now, you're not wrong about that. I realize I may be coming across as being a hater for the sake of it, but after reading Denis' most recent comments of visuals over dialogue, I can't help but point out these obtrusive differences where the source material actually portrayed both a better visual and cinematic scene than the films did. Maybe I'm misinterpreting his ideas of cinema visuals, but I was always under the impression good storytelling shows the viewer rather than tells the viewer. If a 29-year-old hiding behind a keyboard who knows fuck all like myself can make that observation, I have zero doubts a director of Denis Villeneuve's stature can and did, which leads me to speculate. Coming off of Blade Runner 2049's box office bomb, the humbled director decided to play ball with the studio and made Dune an easier watch for a wider audience range. I'd also like to point out that he did so without compromising both his overall vision and the source material. I would agree with that. But enough of the Monday morning quarterbacking. As someone who could not understand the universal praise for Part 1, I have a new appreciation. I believe without the concessions Denis might have made to appeal to the masses, we would never have gotten anything like Part 2. From the moment Part 2 started, all of my biggest problems with Part 1 might as well have been left as a token sacrifice of the sandworms. The red sky of the eclipse transported me to Arrakis, and I never left. I was also transported to a place that felt familiar. When Paul and Lady Jessica entered the Fremen hideouts, the Sieches, I felt the same cultural aggression and tension comparable to the scenes in Argo when Affleck's character walks the American refugees through the city of Iran. As I watched Lawrence of Arrakis slowly but organically win over the hearts of the neglected Fremen, Denis won me over. Dune Part 2 had soul. As the wide shot of the Colosseum structure came into frame on Gidi Prime, my buddy leaned to me to say, this is a completely different movie than Part 1. He is right. Unlike 1, I felt as if Villeneuve let Part 2 breathe. We got to hang out with these characters in otherworldly locations, kind of like an Antonioni flick, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Whether it was Paul sandwalking in the twilight of the desert, Fade Ralpha's blade testing introduction, or Princess Irulan's inquisitive conversations with both the Bene Gesserit and her father, this movie felt so much more intimate. These intimate interactions gave the gravitas an epic science fiction story demands, which reinforces the stakes upon the viewer throughout the compelling action sequences and visuals. In short, I can't believe how much I fucking love this movie. I hope Dune Part 2 makes all the money. That way nothing can hold Denis back for Dune Messiah. This might be an unpopular opinion, but I hope he takes a break from Dune and pursues his Cleopatra movie first. The break from a sci-fi film will do him and the audience wonders. That way, when Messiah comes out, Dune can be the world event fandom both craves and needs. I'd also like to ask you this quick question, Rob. Why the fuck is it so hard to see a movie in 70mm IMAX? I live in New York, one of the most densely populated places in the world, and there is one 70mm IMAX theater I can see Dune 2 on. And there's only one, or is there not one? You say there's only one, but maybe you meant there isn't one. Denis has also made the point audiences are dying to feel something at the theaters, and his words are backed up by the weeks and weeks of sold-out shows 70mm IMAX, just like we saw for Oppenheimer. What is stopping the theater chains from investing in this? Is it strictly money? Or is there more to this observation? A lack of supply for event movies? Maybe I'm just stuck in my own thoughts and circle, but I think this, among other things, is the jolt movie theaters need in order to survive. As always, Rob, thank you for taking the time to read my letter. Be seeing you, the fan with no name. Well, fan with no name, another great letter from you. Good questions. I mean, it really does come down to money. The thing is, you have to ask yourself, how many IMAX films are going to get made a year? We were lucky in that we had two filmmakers in Denis Villeneuve and Christopher Nolan who gave us these event pictures. I mean, you know, I've talked about this a lot in the last couple weeks, but in the 50s when television threatened the supremacy of movies, movies got bigger. They got wider. They weren't no longer just the Academy ratio. They got widescreen. There were epics, everything from Ben-Hur and The Robe, and whether there were biblical epics or even a movie like Forbidden Planet, which came out in 1957, was a beautiful widescreen film. You know, when they got Disney animators to make the monster from the id. I mean, they were going after the audiences by giving them an experience they hadn't had before. Now, the problem is how many. I mean, IMAX theaters are big. They take up a lot of space. So when an AMC has a Dolby Cinema and an IMAX cinema, like at the Burbank 16, they can afford to do that. But the real problem with 70mm IMAX is if you're dealing with 70mm film, there are very few people that are left that know how to handle that. The projectionists, which were union guys, they don't exist anymore. So it's hard to find people to actually run film, 70mm film. It's unruly and unwieldy. So that's part of the reason. And unfortunately, I think that look, here's the real problem. We don't have many filmmakers that can make these movies. I mean, there's probably 10, maybe, that are working at the level of Christopher Nolan and Denis Villeneuve. I mean, these guys are consummate filmmakers that are, it's not just that they're self-taught, but it's in their blood. And there's a lot of filmmakers, especially studio filmmakers, that are working today, but very few of them can do what Nolan and what Denis Villeneuve can do, because remember, it's not just them, it's their team. It's everybody they have working with them. And I think that the studios, everyone's trying to run around going, well, how are we going to make money? And I think, well, Dune 2 is still quite an investment. It's $190 million, still $200 million. So in order to make real money, a movie like that worldwide has to make $800 million, $900 million to make it worth the studio's while, because they only get half the box office. So I think that movies, the studios did this to themselves. Movies now, people want to see spectacle, and James Cameron can provide it with Way of Water, which he did, banger. Kevin Feige was able to do it. Marvel was able to do it with Infinity War and Endgame. Different kind of spectacle, but still, when Marvel was firing at all cylinders, it was giving the audience that collective experience. Seeing Dune 2 was overwhelming, especially seeing it with an audience. People love to go, and people love to discuss it afterwards. It's what cinema is supposed to do. It provides a real moving experience. And while not everybody can do that, the studios are the only people that can muster the resources needed to make a film like that. I mean, I certainly couldn't. I've got 2 scripts that I want to make that I've written. Both of them are book adaptations. And one is a small film, but I'll tell you something. If I got to make this small movie, I want to shoot it in IMAX. Why not? Why should IMAX just be saved for big budget movies? I think you could make, because there's nothing more compelling than to see the human face gigantic on a screen. Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer is a movie of just people. And it's totally compelling. And I think that, I would love to make a low-budget indie movie. When I say low-budget, I'm talking $10 million. $8 to $10 million. I'd love to make an $8 to $10 million movie in IMAX. I don't even know if it's possible. I'm looking into it. But I don't know if you could. I mean, once White Devils is out into the world. I love IMAX. I love going to those big formats. And the reason there aren't enough of those theaters around is because they can only play IMAX. That's why people would go. And there's only so many IMAX movies that exist. And maybe the studios will start, making more films in IMAX. But great letter. And thank you, Fan with No Name, for writing in. This comes from John Ciccarelli. John Ciccarelli, yes. And the subject headline is, The Downfall of Marvel and Disney Plus Started Before the Streamer Launched. Greetings, Rob. In my opinion, Feige's biggest mistake with Phase 4 and 5 has not been its avalanche of new characters, its lack of interconnectivity, or its alleged woke agenda. It's that Feige got rid of Jeff Loeb's Marvel TV division just when Disney needed them most. Prior to a dismal show like She-Hulk and Secret Invasion, Marvel TV under Loeb was treated as the company's stepchild. Movie fans opined these shows aren't really part of the MCU, so I don't watch them. However, from 2013 to 2020, Loeb's TV division produced 11 MCU-affiliated shows, 2 X-Men adjacent shows, 2 animated shows, 1 standalone Hulu show. This totaled 36 seasons and 462 episodes. With only 2 real duds, their majority content ranged from entertaining to amazing television. These were produced as proper television shows by experienced showrunners, line producers, and production staff dedicated solely to producing Marvel content, not by movie people moonlighting as television people. With this track record of quality output and Disney needing content and creatives to launch a streaming service, what should have been the obvious Hollywood business decision, especially when Feige got full control of Marvel in 2019, give Disney Plus to Jeff Loeb. Nope. Instead of promoting Loeb to oversee Disney Plus under Marvel Studio oversight, Loeb was fired, and the TV division was disbanded. Why? Marvel Studios and TV had an icy and separate relationship stemming from animosity between Feige and Ike Perlmutter. The only thaw came in 2013 to 15 when Sam Jackson, Colby Smulders, Jamie Alexander, and other MCU actors appeared on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Marcus and McFeely created the Agent Carter TV show with Louis Esposito and Joe Russo each directing an episode and Feige's full Season 1 producing credit. This collaborative period could have served as a Disney Plus blueprint, but on steroids, given their astronomical budgets. Feige could have put this experienced TV division immediately to work, producing new content and leveraging existing content and actors. You want young Avengers? Here are the characters from Runaways and Cloak and Dagger that could team up with Miss Marvel and Kate Bishop. You want a Marvel spy show with Secret Invasion? Here are seasoned actors and writers from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. You want diversity? 2 female-led shows, 1 African-American focus show, an Asian co-lead that could tie into Shang-Chi. Feige's massive mistake is very apparent with the retooling Daredevil Born Again and canonizing all of Jeff Loeb's Defenders shows. A TV division now just has to be rebuilt when Feige already had it 3 years ago. Rob, as much as you have opined on why didn't Alan Kurtzman tap Rick Berman, who produced 25 seasons of successful Star Trek, for the new Trek shows, I'm sure you can appreciate the tragic story irony in all of this. Feige could have stayed laser-focused on event movies, and Loeb could have handled Disney+. Instead, Feige let petty animosity drive studio decisions and led to the current state of the MCU. Thanks for all you do. John. You know what, John? You're right. I think that's a great letter. And I think that the fact that they've gone back to Daredevil and they're looking at the Daredevil TV show, if all the Marvel TV shows were of the quality of Daredevil, and to a certain extent Punisher, and I love the first season of Jessica Jones. I really did. Iron Fist. I like Luke Cage a lot too, but Iron Fist wasn't so good. And the Defenders show was all right. But the characters, those were sound shows. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Agent Carter again. I think you're right. I think this is exactly what they should have done. And in reading this, it makes me lament the fact that they didn't. Because I think that their TV shows, like you said, were all over the place. They needed experienced TV showrunners who knew how to write TV, produce TV, and they had been giving us good TV. And I don't necessarily think that Kevin Feige has any animosity toward Jeff Loeb. Maybe he does. I don't know. I've never met Kevin Feige in the flesh. I don't think. Maybe I met him briefly on the set of X2 or something, but I don't remember. And I've never met Jeff Loeb, but I have a lot of his work, his comic work. I think you're right. I think this is it. You've now made me depressed because this was certainly a way to go that we didn't. The road less traveled, but I like that a lot. I like that idea from you a lot. Really good. Jim Lehman says, thanks. That's all he says. He says thanks, but he has a letter too. That's just in the subject headline. Jim says, I just wanted to thank you for trying to bring balance to the hypercritical views that several of today's podcasters flaunt when you participate on their programs. I've become concerned that podcasters are tainting their viewers' expectations with their purist ideology, especially when it comes to podcasts such as a product such as the latest Dune movie. I wonder what the new Dune movie could have done financially at the box office if podcasters would have withheld their negative critiquing a couple of weeks after opening in theaters. We cannot expect that when a podcaster is passive-aggressive about a product, that their viewers will still want to support it. Viewers, like most people with anything, only remember the negative and will react as such. I hope that podcasters can be a little more time-sensitive in the future when reviewing a movie, especially at a time when we need movies like Dune to feed our passion for quality sci-fi. Well, Jim, thank you. I very much appreciate that. See, here's the thing. I think the one thing that, look, I really like going on other people's shows. I like going on The Drinker's Show. I like going on Midnight's Edge. I like going on Chris Gore's new Versus show. When Chris Gore specifically told me, he said, look, I want to do a counterpoint to a show like Friday Night Tights and just have a different kind of a conversation. And I'm like, I appreciate that. Like, I'm a fan of everybody. I'm a fan especially of Gary, of Nerdrotic. I think his editorial videos, while he might be, caustic or a little acerbic for some, I do think his editorial content's terrific. He's making good points. For me, I love movies and television, and I've worked in the business, albeit in a small way, but I have been involved in the business from the bottom up for 35 years. And I've worked at a lot of different levels, and I've done a lot of different things. So what I try and do is bring a tempered and more of an industry-friendly point of view. And look, do I get mad about Star Trek? I get mad about Star Trek because there's enough great Star Trek to look at and emulate. What I don't like is when people want to work on something and they have to put their imprimatur on it, and in doing so, they take away or they don't get to the essence of what made this thing great in the first place. I mean, I think, to me, a great example, maybe the best example of watching something go off the cliff is Doctor Who. When they brought back with Christopher Eccleston doing he was the Ninth Doctor, when they brought that back in 2005, they tried to bring, I remember when they tried to bring Doctor Who to America with Paul McGann playing the Doctor for that Fox TV movie where Eric Roberts was the Master. And that's canonical Who. They've tried to keep that canonical Who going, but then Christopher Eccleston and then, of course, David Tennant and Russell T. Davies and all that. Doctor Who was really, really good. And then you kind of watched it go off a cliff as they're trying to serve other masters than telling great stories. This is what, and the thing is, the impetus for all this to me is more representation in storytelling is a great thing. I think it's a great thing. The problem is the way it's being implemented. Even the audience, when they try and add more diversity, that audience you're trying to show or give representation to, they know when they're being pandered to. So you're not really doing anything. And like, for instance, I Doctor Who, man, the way they changed around the mythology, and I understand what they're trying to do and all that, but you alienate your core audience, but worse, you make bad TV. If you're working, we can make better science fiction television now than ever before. Nobody wants to see bad TV. I mean, I got to tell you, of everything that's coming on TV, the thing that I'm most interested in seeing in terms of how it's going to work is the three-body problem. I mean, here's science fiction that is very, very Chinese-centric. It's going to be really interesting to see how they handle it. We've already got the Chinese TV version of it, the 30 episodes you can watch on 10 Cent's YouTube channel, which is actually pretty good. So and that's 30 episodes. I mean, I think we're only getting 10, episodes, but yeah, it's frustrating. And I think that I also know that in the hallowed halls of Hollywood, nobody's trying to make something bad. That even when they bring on showrunners, yeah, there's a lot of activism is swept into these artistic spaces, and there's people that are putting their activism and their agendas before their storytelling. Worse yet, there's people that just aren't very good storytellers that are getting into positions of power and aren't doing such a great job for whatever reason. And I mean, I understand that, but it's costing people money. I mean, nobody wants bad storytelling, and it's gonna have to come back around. We're seeing the results of it, So all of us, all fans, no matter which YouTubers you're talking to, and you know what? There's nothing better than to go on to a channel with a bunch of YouTubers that you watch, because I genuinely like everybody in the community that I've streamed with. I really like these people. And, talking to them, sometimes they say things I'm like, well, I wouldn't quite have put it that way. But for the most part, it's been a pretty great experience getting to know everybody. I mean, people, I've known Chris Gore for 30 years, so I've known him for much, much longer than YouTube has existed. So we were friends and we knew each other before that. But all the people I've met, whether it was Gary, whether it's Paulie from Latino Slant, whether it's George the Giant Slayer, whether, even Jeremy. The first time Jeremy contacted me and I went on his channel, Geeks and Gamers. And Jeremy was delightful. Do we share the same politics? No. Would I say a lot of the stuff he says? No. But he was very nice to me. He called me up and said, hey, let me come on my show and we'll have a nice conversation. And we did. And I found that a lot of presentation, remember, these are also supposed to be entertaining shows. So everybody's finding their niche. But for the most part, what I have really liked is being a part of the YouTube community, and when everybody agrees on something that they like Lord of the Rings, I've had some of my best discussions you know, like whether it's on the Drinkers channel, whether it's on Gary's channel, when we're discussing about how much we love something. And we tend to forget that that's why we're here in the first place, is because we all love this stuff. Now, not everybody loves the same things equally. Like my love for William Friedkin's To Live and Die in L.A. is without peer. Nobody loves that movie as much as me, with maybe the possible exception of Charlie de Lauzirika. But, you know, it's fun. It's fun to share. Ultimately, we're fans, and we're sharing what we love. And I can't think of better ways to spend my days. You know, I mean, I went to conventions growing up, and I enjoy talking nerd stuff with people. You know, and even people like Todd Stashwick. Todd Stashwick is a nerd from way back. He's not just a handsome, virile Hollywood actor who's also a great writer and a really great guy, but he knows his shit. That guy knows what's up. And there's not a lot of him in the business. There's some, but it's always I met him through Terry and through Star Trek Picard season 3, and you know, now we're working together, and I like all of this kind of stuff. So for the most part, for all the talk about, you know, the toxic punditry and all that goes on, I've actually found, and I know that people have YouTube beef with one another. I've heard about it. I've managed to stay sort of kind of, except the places I've actually worked with other people. I've managed to stay above the fray for the most part, but I've had a delightful experience with, I haven't had, since I've been on my channel and all the people that I've streamed with, I haven't had one bad experience. There might be people that think I'm a monumental douchebag, but for the most part, I have had a very great positive experience. The YouTube nerd movie pundit space has been nothing but fun, and I'm happy to be a part of it, and that people still watch, and the channel's getting more subscribers. Oh, now would be a good time. I have realized, so everyone wants us to bring back Whining About Movies. And Whining About Movies, for those of you who don't know, is when my girlfriend Elizabeth and I, we started right before, we actually started before the pandemic happened, like a week before lockdown. We didn't know lockdown was coming. We started a show called Whining About Movies, and the premise of the show is we'd review a movie, we'd talk about a movie, and we'd share a bottle of wine, and we read letters. And people love the show. We ended up doing over 100 episodes. So we're going to bring back Whining About Movies, but I looked back at the Whining About Movies episodes, and a lot of them, most of them have like 1,000 views. No one's seen these shows, and they're some of them, you know, now I said 4 years old. So I've got new graphics. I'm going to spruce up the shows, play with the sound, make the sound a little better. I'm going to start reposting Whining About Movies with a new format. I mean, it's going to be the same show, but I'm going to spruce it up a bit. I'm going to put it back up so people can see it, and hopefully it'll garner a much bigger audience. So March 8th, in 2 days, that would be Friday, I'm going to put up episode 1 of the show again, which was from March 8th, 2020, and it's Elizabeth and I reviewing David Cronenberg's Videodrome. So for those of you who are interested, I'm going to repost it again, and when you do a premiere, there will be a live chat, and if people want to send in super chats during the live chat, we'll read them on the next show and stuff like that. So there you go for Whining About Movies. It's coming back, and yeah. This letter comes from Terrell Williams. Terrell writes in, says, "Let's talk about Shogun and the Klingon Empire." And this letter's from today. Before my letter jumps into hyperdrive or warp speed, whichever is faster, I would like to acknowledge 2 very special anniversaries. Happy 60th to the G.I. Joe action figure, which masterfully represented the American military soldier. In 1964, this was Hasbro's answer to Mattel's Barbie, and it was a grand slam home run with young boys. Talking G.I. Joe with the real-life beard was my jam. And happy 50th to the Mego Toy Company, exploding heavily on the scene in 1974 with Batman and Superman. Mego created action figures and playsets based upon Marvel, DC Comics, Star Trek, Planet of the Apes. Huge success. And for the record, Toys R Us had the best Mego toy display section ever. Let me comment on both of these things, Terrell. First of all, awesome that you brought this up. I was there, man. I got those first 2 the Superman and Batman with the removable cowl, world's greatest superheroes. Those figures were amazing, but nothing No toy since was better than 12-inch G.I. Joes. I know, 3 3/4 inch, you can get a aircraft carrier, I know. But those 12-inch with kung fu grip, the facial hair, you could get, they made white soldiers, they made black soldiers, you could get them without a beard, you can get them with the beard. The accessories were bangers, even like the exclusive ones you could get only at Sears were amazing. The mobile support vehicle, the headquarters, the 12-inch G.I. Joes, that's what instilled a lifelong love of action figures. And it was very odd because the action figures, then they went to the 8-inch Mego figures, and then they went to the 3 3/4 inch Star Wars figures. And maybe that's why the love of the 12-inch, the 6th scale figure was given to me by G.I. Joe. We used to play, all my friends would come over to my house because we could go all the way around our house. We had a really cool backyard and a really cool front yard with very well manicured, but we had, we'd bring all your G.I. Joes and you'd play all day long with the whole neighborhood. The adventure team. It was interesting. The thing that happened with G.I. Joes in the latter half of the 60s, they were huge when they started in 64, but by the end of the 60s, because the military was so frowned upon because of anti-war protesters in Vietnam, they rebranded G.I. Joe to the Adventure Team. And G.I. Joe, instead of being G.I. Joes, they became more Indiana Jones, where you could buy an ATV that came with a mummy. The mummy was always too small, though. With a mummy, or you could get airboats and from to go through the swamps of Louisiana and hang gliders and all kinds of things. The Mercury capsule, which I loved, although when you open the thing, it scratched up the glass, but whatever. I loved 12-inch G.I. Joes. They were the greatest things in the world. So thanks for that. Now, Terrell's letter goes on. He just cited those things. Rob, I want to talk about the reimagined masterpiece that is Shogun. Oh my God. Television was invented to educate, enchant, and entertain audiences, and Shogun checks off all the boxes. With its amazing cinematography, costume design, characters, and story, I give it an A. Always enjoyed learning about world history in school, so seeing the ancient Japanese empire in this medium is right up my alley. One delightful philosophy about the Japanese culture, they sure knew how to deal with those foreign colonizers and trespassers. Too bad ancient Africa didn't adopt the same mindset. Darn. I must admit, though, after seeing the first trailer, I thought, why mess with a classic? I guess just because something works doesn't mean it can't be improved upon. I sure hope the grandchildren of author James Clavell are reaping in the financial royalty rewards. I gotta say, man, I love the original Shogun. It's one of my favorite things that's ever been on TV. I probably watched it 10 times. Love it. I was so scared. You know, even Alexander Wilson, one of our longtime viewers, was like, why'd you have to hate on this show? I wasn't hating on it. It's just that Shogun was something like Star Trek that I love with all my heart. I can't believe Hiroyuki Sanada, man, as Toranaga. This show is fucking banger. I can't even believe. I mean, to me, if Shogun, this isn't a fair comparison because the original Battlestar Galactica is not good. It's fine. It was all right. I liked it at the time. But if the original Shogun, which was, 1980, if that was Battlestar Galactica, this new Shogun is Ron Moore's Battlestar Galactica, if that makes any sense. It's so good. I mean, I know we're only 3 episodes in, but it's so good, and they've taken so much time, and I love it. I can't believe how good it is. So you're absolutely right. Terrell goes on to say, growing up in the 70s and 80s, I fondly remember those brilliant televised miniseries like Roots, War and Remembrance, Salem's Lot, Pearl, Rich Man, Poor Man, V, and of course, Shogun. Well, Winds of War was before War and Remembrance. So for me, it was I, Claudius, which I saw on PBS, and it had boobies in it, so I love that. I'm like, oh my God, I was a kid, and there's boobies on TV. So I, Claudius, Shogun, and Winds of War were my jam. Witch Man, Poor Man, the Thornbirds, that kind of stuff, but those 3 things tickled my fancy. They were historical, too, and in a way they were taking you to worlds that I had never seen, but I love them. So, growing up in the 70s, Terrell goes on, and 80s, I finally remember those. Those were must-see TV events. After every episode, most people talked about it when they went to school, the workplace, grocery stores, and neighborhood barbershops. 100% right, Terrell. I mean, everybody watched those miniseries. That and James Bond movies. And we'd go to school and talk about them. I mean, I couldn't get enough. Although I have to say this. I got to say this since you brought up Roots. Roots is great. But Roots was on, I want to say, when I was in the 4th grade, Mrs. Walton's 4th grade class. And there was a girl who later went to Bush. She transferred out of public school and went to private school, named Lisa Schultz. Truth be told, I had a crush on Lisa Schultz, but she was like the smartest girl in the class. And when Roots was on, she busts out, it's Alex Haley? She brings in Alex Haley's Roots book, started to read it. And I'm sure she finished it too. But I was always like, whenever I thought, because I was like, I thought I was smart, but I wasn't as smart as Lisa Schultz. I wanted to be. I couldn't be. Lisa Schultz was the smartest girl in my class. And she fucking brings in Roots to read it. Oh, I was like, and you know what though? I read Shogun. I read The Winds of War and War. I went and got my Herman Wouk fix on, but I never read Roots until much later. Not when the show was on. By the way, that's a great book. And that miniseries was great. Of course, introduces the world to LeVar Burton. So anyway, Roots, but that's the thing, man. Lisa Schultz with her book. In your face. One can clearly see how the Klingons were based upon the mighty Japanese Empire, mostly the samurai. In fact, the premise of Shogun could be a Star Trek series set 50 years before Kirk's 5-year mission about an early prototype Earth vessel that accidentally crash lands on the Klingon homeworld. Bro, dude, I've been saying that thing. I always saw Shogun as a Star Trek story about one of a Federation that crash lands on an alien planet. I've said it on the show that's what I believed, and you just nailed it. Probably the reason why I love Shogun so much. It totally was, and the Japanese are so alien. It's great, but you love them. You know, Yoko Shimada. Come on, it's good stuff. The only human survivors are an African-American husband and wife who were later assimilated into the ways of the Klingon culture and empire. After renewing their wedding vows, they become honorable warriors, just as sinister Romulans attack, utilizing a Klingon bat'leth sword. Somebody's going to get cut. Ouch. Rob, are you enjoying the reimagined Shogun? Thanks for reading my letter. Until next time, the end. Terrell Williams. Well, Terrell, I am. I mean, as you can see it, you and I are definitely, we park our shuttlecrafts in the same shuttle bay. And we love Shogun, and I think Shogun is fantastic. I'm loving it. So yeah, and I like that idea. A husband and wife, I love African-American. Maybe that's why, all those great actors African-American actors played great Klingons later, beginning with Michael Dorn and Tony Todd. But that was actually part of the reason they cast African-American actors was literally because of makeup. It was just easier to have people that already had dark skin, rather than having to put makeup on people. I mean, they did it later. And let's face it, there was other good Klingons. There was all kinds of people that played good Klingons. But, that's I mean, come on, Worf and Kurn. And that's true. I mean, we got to see a lot of that whole Klingon storyline beginning with Sins of the Father in season 3 when Worf had to go through discommendation. I mean, the only thing is I wish that the Klingons were less space Viking on Next Generation and more feudal Japanese. I mean, I get why they did it, but you're right. Good stuff, though. Very much appreciated. Now, let's see. Let me jump back in and see what you guys are saying in terms of stuff. Let's see what you guys are saying. Let's see. Darth Plato, our friend Darth Plato, sends in a tip and says, if you could remake any episode of the original series as a musical, which would it be? The same question for TNG and DS9. Well, I'll tell you. Probably Shore Leave from the first season when they go to the amusement park planet. Do that as a musical. Why not? Because that would be fun. For Next Generation, probably like Captain's Holiday or something, and he goes to Risa, Jamaharon. Jamaharon, are you looking? Jamaharon, you'll be finding. Jamaharon, I don't know. I'm making this stuff on the fly. I can't write a book. I mean, there would be the Jamaharon song. And Deep Space Nine on the same lines, Meridian, which is kind of like Brigadoon. Meridian is one of the worst fucking episodes of Star Trek ever. But if you turn it into a musical, it could only be better. It could only be better. So there you go. Jamaharone. We got to write the long. Everybody, use Chat GPT and write the song Jamaharone. We're gonna get some. Robert Collins says, Rob, have you ever interacted with Nicole DeBoer? She recently was Esri Dax in Star Trek Online, and I would love to see her lead a post-DS9 Prime Timeline Star Trek. Well, I'll tell you, I've never met her. I think she's absolutely adorable. I know the Inglorious Treksperts have met her. She's great. I love Nicole DeBoer. I love what they did with Esri Dax, too. But I'll tell you, if you read Star Trek novels, specifically David Mack's Star Trek novels, Esri Dax she becomes the captain of the Aventine. And if you want to read some epic Star Trek, get David Mack's Destiny trilogy. So there were for 20 years, the Star Trek Litverse had one long ongoing continuity, post-Dominion War, that covered all the different shows. And the Destiny trilogy was fucking phenomenal. All of David Mack's Star Trek books, his Vanguard series that he co-created with other writers, but he did his Data trilogy, the Cold Equations, the 2 Mirror Universe books he wrote, Sorrows of Empire and Rise Like Lions. That hasn't happened in a while. Woo! Those are great. But his Destiny trilogy and Esri Dax plays a big role. So she's awesome. I mean, I'm a big fan. And she could. I mean, look, I think the problem is, in my mind, Kurtzman, Secret Hideout has kind of ruined Trek continuity. Terry Matalas pulled it back. But again, the Star Trek novels showed the way. The Deep Space Nine novels and what they did with Deep Space Nine, they could easily have brought that back. And I mean, and as a matter of fact, if you look at Picard season 3, it's still that era. And so why not? Why not bring everybody back? Ronzilla sends in a $50 super chat. Oh my God, Ronzilla, that's just too generous of you. Hello, Rob. Both Dune 1 and 2 are beautifully made. Just magical. But, I prefer David Lynch's world building by a hair. I love the architecture, the leather, the vapors flushing out from the pipes. It's engraved in my mind. Ronzilla, I have great affection for David Lynch's Dune, and I'll tell you, for those of you who don't know it or haven't seen it, walk, don't run to YouTube and watch the Spice Diver edit of Dune 1. It's 3 hours long. There's a 4K upscale of it, and a fan edit. Fan did this. He took all the deleted scenes, finding like from the TV version, the Alan Smithy TV version, the Japanese Laserdisc, I guess, upscaled it, reworked it, everything. And I'll tell you something, even the scene when you see Thufir Hawat, Freddie Jones, he's in it, which is removed from Dune 1, but Dune Part 2, I mean. You see the Fade and Baron Harkonnen, they're torturing him. And I don't disagree with you. I think if you were to ask people who are loving Dune 2, people think the spice is like drugs. They don't really understand that the entire economy of the Dune universe revolves around spice being able to help guild navigators find their way through space, navigate through space, and how the evolution and what happens. I don't think the world building is as clear. And even though people said that the David Lynch version is a big bore, I would tell everybody, go watch the Spice Diver cut. And especially now, because the Spice Diver cut has a lot more of the world building. But I agree with you. The set design in that is incredible. I love the uniforms. I love the actors. I love everything in that movie. It was truncated. It was just too, when it first came out, I mean, people forget, but the Christmas of 2020, the Christmas of 1984 was so much fun because we had 2010 Odyssey 2 come out and Dune came out within the same couple weeks of each other. Two big literary adaptations. I mean, obviously 2010 was not, it's not 2001, but it's a great space adventure. To this day, I defend 2010. It seemed a little dated. It would, if they had went with the original book, because the original book, the Russians and the Americans team up to beat the Chinese to Jupiter. And that would have been even more topical now, but now it's kind of coming back around with our tensions with Russia. But both of those movies, I like them, and it was interesting to get two big literary visions, big budget movies. When Dune came out, it didn't do very well, but everybody go to YouTube. It's free. Go find the Spice Diver cut of Dune, David Lynch's Dune, and watch it. It's a whole different experience. It really is. So check it out. And Ron, I agree with you, and that's very nice of you to support the channel in that way. I very much appreciate that. That's very kind of you. And if you haven't, do yourself a favor, because I was watching the Spice Diver cut just today here, right on this computer, because I wanted to see. I vaguely remembered that Thufir Hauer was in it, and he is. And you see that because he's completely missing from Dune Part 2, and there's some world building and character stuff that's missing from Dune 2, and I wanted to see if it was in the Spice Diver cut, and sure enough, yes it is. So check that out. Thank you again. Darth Plato says, "Hey Rob, it occurs to me, if you're adapting Dune to the film medium, does the movie have to be as close as possible to the book? How different can it be? It's a movie, not a school test. I haven't seen Dune 2 myself, and it does worry me how altered it is. It's not that altered. Look, I think that, it depends. Like, Jaws is pretty different than the book. And, I mean, Matt Hooper has an affair with Brody's wife. Can you imagine that in the movie? That wouldn't work out. I think adaptations are just that. Adaptations. I love Stephen King's Dead Zone. It's one of my favorite books. But the movie, the Cronenberg adaptation, is quite good. But there's 100 pages that are in the book because John Smith's in a coma, and that are not in the movie. I don't know how you'd put them in the movie, but it's missing. I mean, Cronenberg did a very elegant, very stripped down adaptation of The Dead Zone, but you get the salient points. So I think an adaptation, it depends how things are done. Cronenberg's own adaptation of like Naked Lunch and Crash, I mean, Naked Lunch is pretty different. Dead Ringers is an adaptation, totally different than the book. I think it really depends how people handle it. But I think Dune is pretty faithful. There's things that I think the changes they made, like in terms of the Fremen and how it ends, are good. I think they're almost improvements. But you'll have to see it. It's good stuff. I think you'll quite enjoy it. I think it's just a staggering motion picture. Wheat Thin from Portland, Oregon sends in a tip and says, I asked this in a super chat last month, but I don't think it made it to you. So I'm trying a tip. So I'm just curious about your experience on Free Willy. Were you on location? I'm a Goonies lover, and I adore Astoria. Did you get to meet Donner? Okay. Here is how I worked on Free Willy. So when I worked at Warner Brothers under Bill Young, there were 3 executive production managers. There was Kurt Newman, Ron Smith, and Penelope Foster. And I developed a friendship with Penelope Foster. And when she left her position at feature production, she went over and was a producer on Free Willy. And so she took me with her. So I worked for Jenny Lou Tugend and I worked for Penelope Foster in the office and did some tests and stuff, and got to go to Mexico. I never went to Astoria because I was only working on pre-production. So I was there for months, but I was only there for pre-production. And what was interesting, so at Warner Brothers, there was a bunch of bungalows that were kind of organized like a donut, well, more like an oval. And in the middle of the oval was a pathway. And there was Joel Silver's office, and there was Richard Donner's office. So I was in and out of Richard Donner's office on Free Willy every single day. I saw Richard Donner and spoke with him a number of times. Lauren Schuler Donner, talked to her quite a bit. And it was because, I was whatever they needed. So I was running around all day long where our production offices were, which was kind of down on a different part of the lot. But I was in and out of Donner's office all the time. So I did fun things on that. Like I had to do a camera test at the Warner Ranch, the Warner, it's no longer there, but they just shut it down. But I had to take a giant, like it was a black piece of it. It was like almost like lucite. I don't even know what it was. I had to paint it, and I had to take it and get into into a giant swimming pool that was on the Warner. It wasn't the Warner Ranch. It was I forget what it's called. It was not the Warner lot. It was down Hollywood Way. People will know. It's where the Lethal Weapon neighborhood was, where they, which they just, it's gone now. It's gone. But there was a pool there, and I shot camera tests for this giant thing, and Walt Conti, who made the animatronic Keiko for Willie, had made the animatronic whales George and Gracie for Star Trek 4. So it was fun. I worked on that movie for months, and yeah, it was great. So yeah, I met everybody. I met Lori Petty, and we talked about Point Break. She just like finished that, and she was great. I love that. It was a lot of fun. I mean, I enjoyed it, and it's funny because I forget. Like, I don't have a credit on that movie. I should have had a credit on that movie, but I wasn't all the way through the production, so I didn't get a credit. But it was still fun. I was on it for months, and but I never made it up. But my aunt lived in they lived in Gearhart. So my entire youth, I was in Seaside. I'd go to Seaside and Cannon Beach and Gearhart, and everyone who knows me knows that my favorite candy on the planet Earth is cinnamon saltwater taffy from Bruce's Candy Kitchen in Cannon Beach. People have tried to give me other saltwater taffy, and I very much appreciate that, but that's not. No, it's not other flavors. It's only cinnamon. I probably am too old, but if somebody sends me a bag or a box, and people do, I'll eat that shit. Like, I'll eat it all up. It's the greatest thing ever. But I love Astoria. It's beautiful. I love driving down to Oregon. I mean, I'm from Seattle. So P&W, my sister lives in Portland. Mike Schertz, who I do crisis medicine with, lives in Portland. Good friends of mine, my good friend Clark Von Trotha, Kelly Sugg, or Kelly McDonald now. A lot of people I know live in Portland, love going to Portland. I've been shooting up there. I was up there twice in October. I went up at the beginning of October and the end of October shooting. So, yeah, big fan. So I hope that answers those questions. So let's see. Let's see what else I've got cooking here. Kenneth Colton says, what is your expectation? He's been a member for 14 months. For Deadpool and Wolverine. I would really love to see Captain America Winter Soldier quality, but that may be asking a lot. I'm going to tell you, man, I'm really excited. I think the only fear that I have with this movie is, again, this convoluted multiverse crap. I mean, I get it. It's just, I'm over it. But I just hope it's not too goofy. What I really liked about the first Deadpool is it worked as a film. It was a great superhero movie. It was a great character study. It was a great romance, great tragedy. It worked on a number of different levels. Deadpool 2 kind of went a little bit off the rails, but I'm hoping that, I mean, this film is going to be by definition so insane and out there, but I hope that they maintain it has heart. I'm really looking forward to it, to be honest. I really am. And I hope it's great. I really hope it's great. So, yeah. Grant Bixon, man, I don't know if I said, but he became a new member of the channel. Thank you for that. And Nick Parrish, did I already say that? Good to see you guys. And thanks for joining. And Tom Jr. Jackson gifted a Burnett membership. I want to know what Dakota Johnson officially, when she said good riddance, I still want to know what that means, Jay Bling. What does it mean? I don't know. But anyway, everyone, I think that is going to bring this chat to a glorious conclusion. This was fun. I want to thank you all for hanging out. Good show tonight. I want to thank everybody for generously supporting this channel via super chats and tips. If you have comments or anything down below, leave a comment. Like, subscribe. Need those subscriptions up. We got to get. Look, I'm watching all these people that have been on YouTube for like, a year, like Paul Chatto, who I love. He got his 100,000 subscribers and got his button. I know I got to put all this short content up. I know. I want to get to 100,000 subscribers. I want a button. You got to set goals in life. I've achieved most of my goals. I want to get rich, which I've never achieved, and I want to get a button. I want a YouTube button. Help me, all of you. Subscribe. Help me get a button. Help me. You're my only hope. So, Yeah, that's cool. And look out in 2 days, Friday, Whining About Movies is going up. Tomorrow, the Otaku Experience, Israel King is back in the house, and that will be up. I'm going to set that up tonight. So, yeah. And everyone, remember, my birthday is May 15th. But if you want to keep this going, who am I to say no? I want to thank Tom Jr. Jackson for being a great moderator. And, yeah, these chats have been good. I want to thank everybody. A lot of positive feedback, which I very much appreciate. So thank you very much. And on that note, remember, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. And all you have to do is listen. And by the way, I'm going to have a member watch party for The White Devils, our new movie. So look out for that. We still got to finish it. Still doing the sound mix, but we're getting close. Got to finish it quick. So there you go. And on that note, I already said every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear, and all you have to do is listen, right? Did I say that? I can't remember. I'm talking too long. I will be on the John Campea show tomorrow with Chris Carr. We haven't been together. We're doing it remotely. We're moving out of the office, and things are changing. It's good. Man, I'd love to just do that show remotely. It'd be fine with me. But so check us out. I miss Chris. Obviously, she's one of the voices in our audio drama, which it looks like we might be launching the crowdfunding campaign for that next week. And you'll be able to get, with that crowdfunding campaign, you can get the proof of concept that I played for members, but you'll be able to get it either in 2-channel stereo or 5.1 mix. So you can listen to it 5.1. That happens when we launch the crowdfunding campaign. So you'll see and you'll be able to hear what it sounds like in 5.1. So that's cool. And on that note, remember, only you can prevent forest fires. I'll see you tomorrow.